Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be doing a Thresh guide for Season 9, so special thanks to Alex for the generous donation. If you'd like to donate for a guide yourself, just email me at thestretchprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. Just $30. I'll do a guide over any champion or any topic that you'd like. If you want to see more guides, check out my playlist for champion guides, and I also have a topical playlist that includes everything from how to micro better, how to macro better, champion, best champions to one trick, itemization, just pretty much anything you can think of. We probably have over 40 or 50 guides in there, so be sure to check that out. And if you would like to commission one, just email me at strategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. First off, we're going to be talking about Thresh's abilities and sort of optimal ways that you should be using them, which you should be leveling up first, all of that good stuff. Then we'll talk about his overall sort of strengths and weaknesses. We'll talk about runes, talk about items, and then near the back half of the video, I'll talk about laning and different tricks you can use to get advantages as Thresh as the game unfolds. But let's go ahead and start with overview here. And I'll have timestamps in the description as well. If you don't have time to watch the whole thing, you can jump around to your favorite part. So if you're already very familiar with his abilities, but you just want to see like the tips and tricks at the end or whatever, then you can just jump to that timestamp. Okay, but first off, Thresh is an extremely difficult champion to play for a support. I mean, he's not going to be on par with something like, you know, Azir or Yasuo or Riven or something like the super heavy mechanical champions, but he is very hard. And there are several things that go into that. And I've kind of got them listed under his weaknesses here as well, so we can kind of skip ahead to that a little bit. But he's very difficult skill shots. So if you look at his death sentence, it has a half a second delay on it. This is very different from something like a Leona or like a Nautilus, where it's almost instantaneous that they throw out their hook. You have that little wind up, and everybody knows what that looks like for Thresh, and so that'll give them plenty of time to react, right, with a flash or a dash or, you know, just a sidestep, right? So it's got a really long wind up. It's a pretty slender hitbox. So I don't know the exact radius on the hitbox. It says the tether's radius, but that's after you hit them with the hook. But it's a lot more slender than something like a Nautilus, which has a huge hitbox on the hook. I guess it's probably similar to Pike's, but it's got a very slender hitbox. You have to hit it correctly. And the hitbox is kind of wonky, too. We'll talk about this more in the laning in just a little bit, but every champion has a little box around them that is their hitbox. And you have to be able to grab that part of the box with the Thresh hook. It's not hitting the champion necessarily in the face. It's hitting those little corners of the boxes. And so sometimes this can work to your advantage, where it'll look like if someone's standing in a minion wave, for example, you can pull them out of that minion wave. There's lots of videos on YouTube about this of really good Thresh players, like basically hitting just the corner of that box and looking like they're hitting impossible hooks, right? Pulling people through the minion wave. But it can also work the other way, right? Where you think you're just about to hit the person that you want, but you accidentally clip the box of a minion or of a different champion or whatever. So it's very important that, and that's going to be on the scope of this video. It's kind of advanced Thresh stuff. And just learning what the hitboxes are, kind of what they look like, and where you can hit them to get the maximum advantage out of those hooks. So there's a lot of kind of weird stuff going on there that you won't be used to unless you are a Thresh player. Hey, thanks, Bjorn Muller. I appreciate it. It's got a long windup, has a long cooldown. It's very punishing. If you miss this, you're going to be wide open, you know, in the early game for, you know, 20 to 16 seconds, depending on how many points you put in this early. They're going to be able to do whatever they want to you, whenever that's down, because you're just really not going to have much offense outside of that. So extremely risky Q, but can be very rewarding if you hit it. It does stun them for 1.5 seconds. So just remember that with Thresh, you don't always have to take the hook. In fact, a lot of the time, it's not going to be in your interest to take the hook, because Thresh is very vulnerable early on. Getting to sort of his base stats over here, he only has 28 armor at the beginning of the game. If you compare this to something like Alistar, who's got like 44, Braum's got 44, Nautilus has like 37. I mean, this is like Janna level armor, like Sona level armor. Like, he is very, very squishy. So he's a lot closer to an enchanter than most people think. Now, he has more HP than those champions do. You know, your Jannas and your Sonas are going to have like, you know, 500 HP or something to start with, so he's going to have a bit more. But he is very, very squishy in the early game, so you got to keep that in mind. And that's why you don't necessarily always want to take the all-in. whenever you land that hook. Sometimes you do, but you got to measure it carefully. Sometimes just hitting that 1.5 seconds of good quality CC and just allowing your AD carry or somebody else just to put some damage on them, sometimes that's enough, And then on the second one, when they're at half health, that's when you can go in for the all-in. So you kind of got to be able to read the situation there. Another couple of funky things with Thresh's sort of stats here are that he is technically a ranged champion, but he has 450 range. This is actually really bad for him because that means that he can't really use Relic Shield. You can, but it's a lot harder to get those Relic stacks because you don't trigger the execute on the Relic. So you can make it work in the laning phase. You allow your E to charge up to do extra damage. You land the hit, but it's a lot more conditional. The enemy can zone you off of that a lot easier. And then later on in the game, you're just never going to get any gold, pretty much. When everyone else is wave clearing, you don't have the execute, so it's just going to be impossible for you to get gold. So it does give you a little bit of extra HP in the lane if you do the Relic Shield, but most people go coin just because it's that guaranteed income later because he doesn't really have that execute. So if you look at other people playing Thresh here, it's pretty much all coin. There's like occasionally you might see one person sneaks in Relic Shield, but that's why, if you ever wondered, well, why don't, people go Relic Shield on Nautilus, people go Relic Shield on Pyke, why don't they do it on Thresh? That's why, because he's considered ranged. It's also really rough because he can't take Knight's Vow, which would be a really awesome item on him. He can take it, but it's a lot more situational because he's ranged. So he only gets 6% healing off of allies, and he only redirects 6% of the damage. So that means that his itemization is really funky for like a lot of tanks, and that he typically will tend to build squishier stuff than a lot of other tanks will, like your coin, and then he'll get Redemption second, which we'll talk about the itemization here in just a little bit. But you got to be a lot more thoughtful when you're going in than if you're someone like an Alistar or a Leona or a Nautilus, just because you are going to be squishier. But in exchange for that, you do get a lot more utility, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the hooks. You just got to practice a lot, learn to hit those hook hit boxes, try to go out of vision with him, try to get bush control. Obviously, it's going to be much harder for them to dodge hooks if they're coming out of bushes. Try to throw your hooks at an angle as well. So if you can, get diagonal with them, we'll use the lull planner later, but I'll just point this out here really quickly when we're talking about positioning later on. But if you're right here, let's say they have the bush warded or whatever, and you're trying to hit their AD carry, and their supports, right here, your AD carry's right here. You want to try to be right here and throw the hook like this, rather than be right here and throw the hook like this. And the main reason for that is you cover a lot more surface area whenever you throw it diagonally. Because going diagonally through a hitbox is going to give you a greater diameter than if you just throw it straight through the hitbox. I think, most of the time. It certainly seems like it hits a lot more often if you do throw it at an angle like that. And because there's a half a second delay on it under some advanced tactics, you can do a no-look hook as well. You can act like you're walking one way, and then if you time it correctly, you can throw your hook in a completely different way. So it can look like you're just walking, over here to the left, and then just out of nowhere you throw this hook to the right. Or you can be looking at a specific champion, so maybe you just look at their support, right? You're walking up towards their support, and then it's out of nowhere you throw the hook this way. Or you anticipate where they're going to go. So if you think they're going to flash it, for example, if this person's really low and you suspect this person's going to flash, you can just walk at them, start your animation, and actually hook right here instead, because that's where they would flash. So that's what I'm saying. Thresh is extremely difficult to play because you have to read those situations, and you have to really understand your elo bracket too. Are people actually going to try to flash the hook, or are they just going to get hit by it? If you're challenger, they're probably going to dash, or they're probably going to flash the hook. So that looks great. If you're in pro player, you're a challenger Thresh player, and you anticipate and throw that hook way over here and hit them right when they flash. It's oh God, the prediction, But if you're in bronze and you just randomly throw the hook over here, everyone's going to be what the heck? You missed him by a mile, you idiot. That type of thing when you're well, I was anticipating it was going to flash. It's yeah, but in bronze, they're not going to flash the hook as much. You can just throw it straight at him. So there's a lot of cat and mouse of the hook. It takes a lot of skill potential to hit these consistently. If you do hit them, then you are rewarded very heavily once you get a lot of CDR, because every time you hit somebody, then it gets lowered by 3 seconds. So in the late game, when this is 12 seconds, you get 40% CDR. That's going to take it down to, I don't know, like 8 seconds, 7 seconds, something like that. And then you get a 3-second discount on it. Then it's going to ultimately be like a 4-second cooldown. So if you're always hitting these hooks in team fights later, it is really, really nice, because it's the shortest cooldown hook if you're landing them with a lot of CDR late game. So he does have that going for him, which is really nice. But yeah, just practice the hooks, learn the hit boxes, try to throw your hooks at a diagonal angle so it'll cover more surface area on people. If you think they're going to flash or dash, try to anticipate where you're throwing those hooks. And then also, obviously, if you can clear vision out, make sure you always carry around a lot of control wards. Lock out vision out of that bush and see if you can land those hooks there. Now, another decision that you have to make when you're landing these hooks, to kind of segue into our next part here with Dark Passage, is what are you going to do? Now, one popular thing, if you want to go hyper-aggressive mode, you land the hook, you throw the lantern on one of your allies. Okay, so if your jungler's there, you can throw the lantern on them. If it's just your AD carry, you can throw the lantern on them. So if we reset this here, let's say you're moving up like this, you land the hook, right? Okay, boom, got him. Then what you would do, once you land that hook, is you would throw the lantern like right here where this person can click it, and then you take the hook over, and then this person's going to be able to lantern and follow over. So a lot of times, if you want to go full aggression mode, you drop the lantern on them after you land the hook, and then you take it in there. Now, you got to be a little careful that you do this, like, it requires some timing and some really quick decision making, because if you hook somebody over a wall or something, for example, so let's go ahead and reset this. Let's say you see their support right here, right? Like, you've got this warded. You see their support. Your AD carries like right here. You hook this support, right? And then you have to throw this lantern really quickly here, because if you take the hook first, then you're going to be out of range on the lantern. But if you throw the lantern first and then they click on it while you're moving forward, then the lantern will extend to allow them to get that whole range. So that can actually pull somebody really, really far if you time that correctly. It could pull them almost like 2,000 units if you do that correctly. But you have to, sequence your events, right? And your AD carry has to actually click on it. This is another thing we'll talk about in a second, where this can be a problem with Thresh, is you have to communicate everything really well in advance, and you have to count on your allies to actually do the play, right? Because if you, hook them, go over this wall, you throw your lantern, your AD carry, they don't click on it, now you're over the wall, you're probably not going to have enough damage to kill them yourself, and then their AD carry is going to rotate over here, or their jungler might be like right here, and they rotate down, and you're either going to die or have to flash. So that is an offensive way to use the lantern. And that's one of the more common ways to use the lantern, is to do it offensively. Or if, like, your jungler is, like, down here or whatever. Let me reset this real quick. If your jungler's down here, and let's say that you're, like, right here, reset that stuff. They're over here, right? And then, of course, you land your hook right here. You throw your lantern right here to the jungler. Jungler takes it. Boom, they come in right there. So it's really easy. Your jungler can actually come up the lane, and you can throw the lantern. So it's a really good gank path if you're great for Thresh, because that's going to bypass. They can have wards here, 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 just everywhere they have wards. But they're never going to have wards around your tower, obviously, because it gets cleared by the tower, right? So that's a place where your jungler can always come up this way. And if you're a competent Thresh, you're landing those hooks, then they can always lantern you in off of that. And so that's probably one of the best ways you can use lantern, is the offensive lantern, okay? The more common way that people use lantern, however, is the defensive lantern, which can be good as well. So, if we clear everything away, people know how this works. Basically, if you throw a lantern at somebody, if they're caught out, let's say that, the enemy support and everybody is all, like they're pushed under tower, your AD carry is just trying to get that last plate. You don't know where the enemy jungler is. And then it turns out that you spot him on a ward. Let's say you have this warded. You spot him on a ward right here. Your jungler is off, doing something random over here. They're not anywhere close to the thing. Then, of course, you can just throw your lantern right here. You're like, oh, crap, we see the jungler. Throw the lantern there. They take it out, and boom, you can get away. So that allows some of your AD carries that are a little slow or they don't understand where the jungler is or whatever to get out with a lantern, or maybe you've just got that jungler that just wants to, like, hard invade the enemy even though you don't have priorities. They try to come over here, invade this blue. Let's say that you don't have priority in this lane. Like, maybe you're pushed in, like right here. Whatever, minions are right here. Your jungler wants to go invade for some reason. Their jungler spots them out. They start fighting. These guys start, rotating up here. Your jungler's running around like, idiots, why don't you rotate? Why don't you rotate? And then you can throw them a lantern, right there and get them out of that bad situation. So it just erases a lot of really rough situations for your team. It's one of the best escapes in the game. You do have to count on your team to actually click on it. But if you just ping it a lot, if you just ping, the lantern, I don't know if you can ping the lantern itself. I haven't played Thresh in a while since they've updated some of the pings. But just click on my way, help, right on top of the lantern and then throw it there, right? Don't just throw a lantern with no warning, right? You always want to let people know that you're going to do it if possible. Sometimes if it's some fast situations like we mentioned before where you land the hook and then you throw the lantern, you may not have time, but you should be letting them know that you're going to hook in advance a lot. So you should be pinging like 3 or 4 times that you're going to be going for hooks. So you have to communicate this stuff with your team so that hopefully they will do stuff on time. So you want to max out your hook first. You just want to get that cooldown as low as you can possibly get it. It does also increase in damage a pretty good amount. And especially when that starts scaling with plus or CDR and you get this flat 3% reduction, it's really, really powerful the lower your cooldown is. So you always want to max hook first. And I think you should max Dark Passage second. Some people will max Flay second. It's kind of an old school build. It does give you a bit more damage in the laning phase, but having this lantern on a shorter cooldown is really powerful. They did lower the cooldown a lot. I think it used to be 16 seconds was the max you could get it to. Now you can get it down to 12. The mana cost doesn't go up that much, and it actually gives you a pretty good shield as well of 220 base and then 1 per soul. So in a lot of games, you might end up with like 70 to 100 souls, so this would give you around 300 shield. Which is pretty nice and just allows people to reposition during fights as well, if someone's caught out. And it can just be a pretty good shield also just to help people if they're going to get blown up by the Zed or the Karthus ult or whatever. You can just throw a lantern on them, give them a pretty big shield. And that'll help out. This is also really good if you're going to go for like Redemption second, which is pretty common because the plus healing and shielding does affect lantern. So that's pretty good. Gives you a chance to make a lot of plays. Also, if you have a lower cooldown on this, you can actually use it to check bushes, which is really important, especially at higher levels of play. So instead of just like face checking this bush over here, let's say you're the brown support this time over here. Really common place, right, is to try to check this bush. Right, 80 carries over here. You want to see if they have a pink in that bush or not. Well, now you can just throw your lantern in the bush at a pretty good distance and spot that out to see if it's safe to go over there or not. So it's just really handy. Or, of course, the classic, over here trying to look out for Baron, right? Now you can actually throw your lantern from like here into this bush so that you don't have to face check it as much, or you can throw it over this wall. So it's always really nice for a support to have something where they can check bushes that give vision without having to walk up and actually place a ward. So lots of utility there, good defense, good offense, very strong. And then finally we have Flay. Now, this one is very deceptive. I think a lot of people don't maximize Flay. Like, the best use of Flay is to stop movement. So there are a ton of different interactions with this. There's probably a YouTube video that's like all Thresh Flay plays or interactions with other champs. But pretty much if a champion has a dash, you can stop it with the Flay. So if you're thinking of like Tristana trying to jump away, you can pull her out of the air by knocking her back with a Flay. You're thinking of like Lucian trying to dash, you can knock him out with a Flay. Me trying to jump from one person to another, if you're fast enough and good enough, you can actually flay her out of that jump. And especially in the early game, that's got a 10-second cooldown on that W. I've had this happen to me when I'm playing Yumi, and it sucks. You're trying to jump back in, and they flay you out of it, and that's going to feel terrible. So, like, a really proficient Thresh is going to wait until they do that movement, and then he's going to flay. You have to anticipate it and then flay. So a great example of this is you land a hook on Yumi, right? Like, let's say that Yumi's over here. Oops, let's reset that. Go to this. let's say that you're facing an enemy Yumi down here, right? So we're going to go back to blue. Let's say we're blue side here. You're Thresh. You're right here. Yumi's right here. It's a pretty thin wave. And let's say that she's trying to go up and get some harassment. Let's just say there's, you know, whatever, a couple minions like sitting in here. She's trying to go up to get that auto attack, and then she wants to go back on her AD carry. You can come in, land the hook on her, take the hook, and then wait. You just wait for that little bit of time, and then whenever she tries to go in here, she uses her W to try to attach back, because they all will. They'll freak out when they get hooked, and they'll spam W on the AD carry. As soon as she tries to jump in off of that, then that's when you flay. So you have to wait on it, and as soon as she's jumping in, then you hit your flay button. It'll knock her out of it, and it'll be on a 10-second cooldown, and then she's going to die, because she has no escapes, and she's made of paper. Okay, but if you go in immediately with your hook, and then you flay her right away, before you give her a chance to do that, all it's going to do is apply a little slow, and she's going to jump on him anyways. So you have to actually stop that movement. Same thing if you hit something like a Tristana. Do not flay immediately when you hit the Tristana. She's going to freak out and try to jump away, you know, with her W. And as soon as she does that, once she's in the air, then you flay her back. Or same thing with Lucian. Then you flay him back. So that's really the big secret, a major secret to Thresh that separates kind of the amateurs from the really good players, is that you hold your flay for the movement. You wait on them to move. You don't use it early just for the little bit of damage that it does and for the little bit of slow. Okay? Now, if it's a champion that really doesn't have movement, you know, if you hook like a Jinx or a Twitch or something, yeah, go ahead and flay him. You know, you got to read the situation. But if it's somebody that has a movement, you know, I think you can usually be a bit greedier and wait on that movement and then flay them to guarantee that you're going to get the kill. And then you can stop lots of movement as well. So, like a Lee Sin, you know, trying to connect with his second Q. He hits with the first one's going for the second one. You can flay him out of that. Zac trying to engage, you know, over a wall. You can flay him out of that. Leona, this is a very common one. Leona hits her E on somebody, right? She's going in for the engage. You can flay her back out of that. So, you know, obviously I can't go over everything here, but that's the main thing with flays. You need to be thinking who has movement effects that are going to be involved in this play, and how can I use this flay to make a really good play off of that movement. So flay is a very awkward ability because you have to aim it behind you in order to flay people towards you. And it has a really weird hitbox. So because you're aiming behind you, and it has it's a pretty quick animation too. Because you're aiming behind you, there's a really good chance you could mess this up. Because if you angle it just slightly off behind you, then it'll throw off the flay. So let's say, for example, you know, you land this in here, right? You're on top of her, and you're trying to aim this flay, you know, right here or whatever, right? You're trying to flay her back as soon as she starts to move. You know she's going to move this way, so you want to flay back this way. And you accidentally pull your mouse, instead of being right here, it's right here. And you press flay right here. You misclick. Well, now your flay is going to look like this. It's going to go this way instead, and you're going to completely miss her, and she's going to go in. That's going to happen a lot while you're trying to learn Thresh. So it's really awkward. You have to get used to it. There are some pro players that actually do, where you hold down the button, it'll show you where the flay is, because people miss it so often. So it's deceptively a very difficult skill shot because it's really quick. You have to have the timing correct. It's a reactive skill shot, so you want to be waiting to react to something that they're doing, like I just talked about, for the optimal flays. And you have to put your mouse in a really awkward place, which is behind you, to sort of anticipate the angle that they're going to go at. So it's really tricky, but it can work very well. It also gives you a little bit of extra passive damage when you charge it up. So whenever this is charged up, you want to be going up, trying to get an auto attack if you can on the enemy, especially if they're melee, to get in that little bit of extra poke. But yeah, very difficult to use correctly because it's just, for the reasons I said, it's tough to aim, and you have to have your timing really on point to make it work. And then finally, the box. This is a really straightforward ability. You know, if you have someone that's close enough and this is off cooldown, you just pretty much want to use this. Most common way to do it is whenever you're in a team fight, you go in with your death sentence, and then you use the box. When they try to jump out of it, you flay them. You can flay them into the edge of a box as well, so that they take that little bit of extra damage. So it's handy. It's on a long cooldown. It does okay damage. Has a pretty nice slow on it. You can also use this to peel for your AD carry. So if you're standing close to your AD carry, one thing you might do is just like land a hook on somebody, and then the rest of your team engages, and then you hang back and use that box to peel whoever's diving your AD carry off. Use your flay in your box to peel. So you don't have to use all of these abilities, all defensively or all offensively. Each one of the abilities can be used offensively or defensively. And so you want to be trying to figure out how are you going to divvy that up, right? What are you going to use for offense? What are you going to use for defense? How much peel is your AD carry going to need? How much movement do they have? Do you want to use this Dark Passage to save somebody else who's going to be in trouble? Or are you going to go like super aggressive? You go in with your hook and you Dark Passage someone else in. So there's a lot of decisions to be made with Thresh. But these are his abilities. Let's talk about some of his other things here really quickly. So his strengths overall is he has excellent all-in. We'll talk about that here in a second. Some good opportunities for all-ins. He has really good roaming overall. You put some mobility boots on him because he has so many different tools to make plays. He can save people with Lantern. He can, of course, land his hooks. He can walk up and flay people if you get from behind him. If you hit them with the flay, they're slowed for 1 second, which makes it a lot easier to hit the hook after that. So he's really, really good on roaming, and that's what he does most of the time. He's versatile. You know, he's got peel, he's got engage. We talked about those a lot. And then he provides that great safety net for allies, pretty much a free flash on everybody. Now, that can be interrupted if you are trying to lantern out and someone gets CC'd while they're lanterning out. Then, you know, that could be a problem. But overall, it's a pretty good escape. His weaknesses, very difficult skill shots like we talked about before. Really tough decision-making. We mentioned, you know, every ability has defensive and offensive capabilities. And his style, it can be very flexible depending on the situation. You can be one of the better peelers in the game. You can be one of the better engagers in the game. You can partially engage and peel. Like we mentioned before, you can hook somebody with the death sentence and then hang back and use your flay in your box offensively. Just so many different options that you can do with Thresh. It makes it really difficult when you're trying to learn him to figure out the right choices. And if you make the wrong choices, it can be really, really bad. So Thresh can look like a god, you know, if you're making all the right choices and your teammate is really like, your teammates are really coordinated with you, then he can also look completely worthless and go 0-10, right? If he takes every hook that he shouldn't take, if he's way too late on the lanterns, if he's missing all of his flays, it just looks terrible. So tough skill shots, tough decisions, very low scaling. You know, he has low armor. I know it seems like he should have a lot of scaling because when you collect these souls, you get some bonus armor and bonus ability power. But you got to remember that he doesn't get any armor per level, right? And so champions like Nautilus, champions like Braum and Tom and Alistar, all of these champs are going to get armor per level, usually at least 3 per level. So you need to be getting like 6 souls per level to keep up with them, minimum. And sometimes you can do that, but sometimes it's hard to do that if you're roaming around a lot, if you're not in the lanes to collect those souls. It can be pretty rough. So, you know, 0.75 bonus armor, you start off with 28, so you're probably going to need to get to somewhere around like 70 souls, somewhere there about 70, 75 souls to equal what an Alistar and a Braum are going to have in the mid-game. And so, yeah, you can surpass him in super long games, but the meta right now, as of patch 9.12, is going to be a bit faster. So, in general, he's not going to scale as well as a lot of other champs. Also, like, his ratios are pretty bad. Like, it's a 0.5 here. Dark Passage has only soul scaling, which is okay. Like, this scales also with souls, which takes time. And he doesn't get a lot of AP. He doesn't have anything that scales off of armor or magic resist or health. So that's what I mean by low scaling. Although, you know, once again, the souls do give him some degree of scaling, and, you know, the death sentence, as you get more CDR, the flat 3 reduction becomes very powerful late game. But what I mean to say is it's not as good as someone like Sona, who's going to have Athene's Unholy Grail plus Redemption, you know, plus Ardent Censer. That's just so much extra scaling on the team. So all of these enchanters that are going to get those 3 items, the Redemption, Ardent Censer, and Athene's, are just going to outscale you really hard. So that means the pressure's on you to make plays and close out the games quickly before they get too many items. Because if you land a hook sort of in the mid-game and it's about even and you go in and then that Sona just like drops a Redemption and just spams like W and all of her abilities, it's just going to be so hard to burst people out. And you're just ultimately going to get just destroyed in team fights. Okay, and the final thing is it puts some psychological pressure on your team as well. So if you're missing hooks, if you're missing flays, your team's probably going to flame you or at least ping you, right? And then they're going to start feeling really bad, and then you're going to start feeling bad because you're not a godlike Thresh, right? Because you're not Mad Life, but everyone's going to expect you to be. If you're playing Thresh, everyone's going to assume you're a one-trick. They're going to assume you're really good on the champion because they've seen really good Threshes, both in pro play and then in solo queue too. A lot of people who play Thresh do play him a lot. He's probably the most one-trick support out there. So when you're first trying to learn him, people are not going to cut you any slack. They're not going to cut you breaks. And it's really obvious when you're screwing up Thresh. It's very obvious. You know, if you're screwing up someone like Sona, most people won't even notice. Like, if you're dying a lot, they will. But if you're, like, messing up your rotation with your auras and you're not hitting people with the green shots, right, with the green power chords, or, you know, you're not slowing people enough with your pink power chords, you know, or you're aiming your redemption a little bit off or whatever, like, people might notice that, but probably not, right, most of the time. But with Thresh, if you're missing, like, hooks, if you're missing your flays, if you're not throwing your lantern on time or you're throwing it in the wrong spot, people are going to notice and they're not going to be happy about it. So just keep that in mind, that just be prepared for some flame when you're trying to learn Thresh. You better have that mute all button ready. But even aside from that, you're just going to lose a lot of games because your team's going to just fall apart psychologically and blame you if you miss a lot of stuff. So, you know, that can be a problem. Whether you mute them or not, you're probably going to lose a lot of games when you first start learning Thresh, both because he's difficult, but also because it can hurt the psychology of your team if you're not playing him well, because people's expectations are unrealistic about that champion. Okay, so you just want to take Aftershock, Demolish, Bone Plating, Unflinching, and then Stopwatch and Biscuits. Aftershock's pretty much you have to have that or you're too squishy for all-ins early on, especially if the enemy support has Aftershock. Some people have gone Guardian in the past. I mean, maybe you could do that if they have, like, a hard, like, poke champion, like maybe a Lux or a Karma or something, but this day and age, pretty much everybody's doing Aftershock. And then I like Demolish. Some people go Font of Life. You know, you're not going to be getting a ton of health, though, with him, because Zeke's doesn't have any health on it. That's almost always your first item, or mobility boots and Zeke's, and you need a lot of control wards so you can control vision and get good hooks out of bushes and stuff like that early on. So, you know, I don't think it's that great. I would probably just go Demolish because you should be putting up a lot of pressure, and if you are putting up pressure, if you're getting kills or forcing people out of lanes, then getting that extra damage early to secure those plates does help out a lot. So I'd probably go Demolish there. Bone Plating just allows you for better all-ins early. If you think the enemy team is not really going to be able to fight you a lot early, if you're just going to bulldoze them, you know, if you're against like an Ezreal, Janna, or something like that in lane and you have a Draven, you know, maybe you could go for conditioning for later on, so you can be, if you're the primary initiator on your team, if you're the only one who can start a fight, maybe you have to do conditioning to help you out with your squishiness. But I think most of the time, most people go Bone Plating just because it gives you more all-in pressure in the early game. Unflinching, if they have a lot of CC, is probably what I would take. You can also take the health one if you want. That's great later on in the game, but it's not as good early. Unflinching means that you can't be CC'd as much, which is really handy. You could also do Revitalize. It does affect your shield. It does affect Redemption if you get that second. But I think a lot of people are going to go Unflinching if the enemy team has CC. Biscuits against a lot of poke lanes is kind of a no-brainer. You're going to need that sustain. Then after that, it's kind of up to you. You know, you can do Cosmic Insight. 5% CDR is very, very good for his hooks, especially with the flat 3-second cooldown we mentioned before. Stopwatch is good. That does give you kind of one get-out-of-jail-free card so that you can dive or you can take a really risky all-in and use that Stopwatch later. I would say while you're learning it, while you're still kind of an amateur on Thresh, though, Stopwatch is very risky because most people will use Stopwatch and then just die immediately thereafter. So you're just kind of ruining some value there. Whereas, you know, Thresh really likes Flash, Ignite. He really likes having a lower cooldown on his hook. So all of these make Cosmic Insight pretty appealing to him. You can do boots as well, and I do boots on enchanters a lot of times. But the thing is with Thresh, you want to rush those mobility boots as fast as possible so that you can try to make some plays on the map. And it's the same thing with like Alistar, Leona, sometimes Nautilus, and things like that. If you're rushing mobility boots to try to make plays, then you don't want to go magical footwear because it's going to take you too long to get your boots. So I think that you probably want to go Stopwatch if you're a little bit more advanced or you think you're going to use it well. And if not, just Cosmic Insight, and then Biscuits are next. I think those are pretty much your only options. that's what everyone's getting. There are some people that I can imagine. Well, I thought he'd go Relentless. Like, Taste of Blood does help you in trading in the laning phase for sure. And I feel like Relentless is something that's really undervalued on a lot of supports. Like, that extra bit of movement speed is really, really nice to allow you to rotate around for the same reasons that you want mobility boots. So I think both of those are definitely viable. So I think that, you could go Taste of Blood plus Relentless Hunter potentially. Once again, pretty much everybody is going to go for, Inspiration second. Yeah, this is what I was talking about here. So, like, maybe in some matchups you can try this out. But I think Conventional Wisdom is going to be Inspiration. And then over here, I guess just attack speed is going to help you out. I wouldn't recommend getting the CDR on a support just because you're going to be over the cap. You're not taking Transcendence anyways. You're already going to be getting 40% CDR, and it just takes a long time to scale up. I'd rather have that immediate power, and this 10% allows you to get off that first attack, which does a lot of damage a lot faster. So I'd probably go for 2 defensive runes, either armor or magic resist, depending on your lane, and then probably attack speed. You could go for this to get the extra AD if you want to, the 5.4 AD, which can be good, but it's kind of up to you. I think attack speed definitely has some merit as well. Then as far as items go, you want to go Nomads, like we mentioned before. Relic Shield is just too hard to proc, especially in the mid to late game. You're not going to be getting any charges off of the Relic Shield line, whereas Nomad is going to give you a pretty steady stream of income throughout the whole time. And the extra movement's really nice, and the mana regen's nice because you're not going to be getting Fairy Charms early. So those blue coins do actually add up. Those are pretty helpful. And then Zeke's is what everyone's still getting most of the time. Gives you a good chunk of armor, a good chunk of magic resist. It helps your AD carry do a lot more damage, so it's really good with all ends. And because you're going to be close anyways, having that nice little slow field to keep people close by so that your AD carry can run them down and kill them is really handy. So I think Zeke's is still the go-to. Pretty much everybody's going to be getting Zeke's, as we can see over here. A couple of people in there mixing it up, getting some Knight's Vow instead of Zeke's early, but I think that's still going to be the standard. And then Redemption is what you want after that. It does make you squishier, but Redemption is just so strong in team fights, and that will help match the Redemption that the enemy Enchanter is going to have so that you can actually compete in team fights. So that is handy. You do have plus healing and shielding on your W, which is handy. You do like the CDR. The mana regen is nice because that's going to allow you to throw out more hooks. So I think that that's kind of the standard. It's pretty good. Really late game, Locket can be good as well. You're not going to be getting a lot of health, though, because Zeke's is going to be your primary first item that you get, which doesn't have any health on it. So you want to save that Locket until after Redemption. It is a good combo with Redemption because the Locket shield can protect everyone long enough for that Redemption to land, and the plus healing and shielding off of Redemption does make the Locket shield stronger. So especially if they have a lot of magic damage on their team, and you can really get a lot of value out of that 60 magic resist, then I do think that Locket could be pretty good, but it's situational. And then Knight's Vow is another one that kind of goes in and out of flavor depending on, the meta and what's going on. I like Knight's Vow a lot of the time. It's just a cheap item. It still gives you health, gives you a good chunk of armor there, some nice CDR. Yes, you do only get the 6% damage sharing and healing, but really you're just picking this because it's a very cheap item that has health, armor, and CDR, which is exactly what you want on Thresh most of the time. So it's just an all-around, all-right item. It's not amazing. Most items are not amazing on Thresh. You're picking him for his versatility and just how many different ways he can impact fights, right? Because his baseline power level is really, really high. Even if he has no items, right, he can still hook. He can still do those plays with the Lantern. He can still use his Flay to stop movement. He's got a lot of really strong stuff in his kit, regardless of what the items are doing, which is why, historically, he's pretty much always been a really powerful champ in competitive play and popular in solo queue. But let's go ahead and round out this video here. I don't want to go too long, but I do just want to talk about a couple of tricks. We already pointed out a bunch of them here. But I'll just point out just a couple more just to help you get started thinking about Thresh. So one thing that I keep emphasizing over and over again is that you are on the clock when you are playing Thresh. When you're playing Thresh, you are making a statement. You're saying, I'm going to take over this game, and I'm going to close it out before 25 minutes. And the reason is, once again, if you're up against the Sona or the Lux or the Karma or whatever, and they get 2 of those items, the Athenes, Ardent Sense, and Redemption, if they complete those items, you're in big, big trouble because just watch my other guides. I've done a recent Lux guide, a recent Yuumi guide, and I talk about this every support tier list. Check that out as well, every patch. I do a new support tier list, in-depth discussions just like this guide. But the main thing is like their numbers go through the roof. Like the efficiency on those items is like 200 to 300% most of the time. The efficiency on a lot of your items is going to be, 100, maybe 150%. It's really, really low. And what does that mean? Why does item efficiency matter? Gold. Just think about it as gold, right? So if they're buying something that's 2,100 gold, right, and they're getting 200% efficiency on that item, they're really getting 4,200 gold worth of, stuff on that item. If you're buying an item that's just 100% efficient, then you're only getting, and yours is 2,300 gold, it's like a Zeke's, then you're only getting 2,300 gold. And what does that mean? It's like 2,000 gold difference in effective power that they're bringing to their team. So it's like they have 7 more kills. So in other words, each time they get one of their items and you get one of your items, they're getting somewhere around like maybe 7 to 12 more kills worth of gold than you are in terms of overall impact for their team. So, when you both have one item, you can make up for that, right? If you're landing some good hooks, if you're landing some good lanterns, if you're having some good roams and stuff like that, like you can get some kills, right? You can land some hooks, get some extra kills, get some tower plates, dragons, scuttles, gain a CS advantage in the lane. All of this stuff makes up for it because you're getting an advantage through your playmaking ability, right? You're generating extra gold for your team. But if you're not, if you're just sitting there chilling, if you're missing your hooks or you're not taking advantage of good roams or whatever, and you're just sitting there looking at that Sona, right, and she's got Athenes and you've got Zeke's in the laning phase, well, she's going to be up 7 kills on you now. So if your team score is 10 to 10, they're basically 17 to 10. And then fast forward to the next item, right? Now you're going to be getting, I don't know, if you get a Knight's Vow or something like that, and then they get an Ardent Censer, then all of a sudden the score might look like it's 20 to 20, but she's up 2 items on you that are way more efficient. So she's going to have like 14 more kills. So then it's going to be 20 to 34 in terms of scaling, right? So just that's the easiest way to think about it is with those enchanters, they get so strong by default because of the way that plus healing and shielding works mathematically and the way that their items work in terms of just how efficient they are and how well they work together. Tank items suck for the most part, and the main reason for that is like the rest of their kit is usually really good with a lot of CC, and they have really high base stats. Thresh doesn't, but like Alistar, Braum, Tom, all these champions have like a ton of armor, a ton of health, and that just makes them inherently stronger in the early game often, especially in the competitive environment, than someone like Janna, who's gonna be made of paper, right, and can't really start fights, can't make plays happen. So that's how League is kind of balanced out, right? Like these playmaking champs are usually designed to be very, very weak in terms of scaling. You have to take advantage of the kit. So how do you do that as Thresh? How do you not fall behind these champions? Well, number one place to start, and this will work a lot, especially in lower elo brackets, but I've seen this work even all the way up into low diamond. This will still work. So let's say, they've got their, that's a lot of CS there. Let's say that you've got your minion wave here, right? As soon as you hit level 2, you go for the flash flay kill. Okay, just practice doing that. That's something that's really simple. A lot of enemies will not respect that. So the way that you know that you're going to hit it is the third melee minion. As soon as that dies on the second wave, whoever gets it first is going to get level 2. Right? So you need to be posturing up a little bit. As soon as that minion's going to die, you flash right here. Flash, flay. And then that's going to slow them. And then as soon as they flash to get away, which they will, then you hit them with the hook. And then they're dead. So you just flash, flay, ignite immediately, start auto-attacking them. If they try to flash away while they're slowed, then you hit them with the hook and they're dead. So you don't try to throw the hook at them because it has that wind-up time, and it can be blocked by minions. It's just that flash flay right there is going to be enough. And most of the time, like what'll happen is they will blow at least flash heal, and a lot of times, depending on your AD carry, now you need to ping this a lot as well so your AD carry knows what they're doing. But if your AD carry follows up, they're almost certainly going to die. If you grab the support or the, you can grab the AD carry too if you want. Just depends on, who's squishier. If it's an enchanter like a Janna or something, you'll probably want to grab the Janna because the AD carry is going to have a Doran's Blade, which will make them a little bit stronger because they'll have more HP. And they're a lot more likely to heal themselves than they are to heal the support. They might just let the support die. So that's a really common play that you'll see out of like good Threshes. It's just immediately if they don't respect the level 2, you flash flay. If they do respect it, and they back up, then you get really good positioning on the wave. So let's say that, they are right here, you're about to hit level 2, you start stepping up, they start stepping back, they're scared. Well, now you can step up right here and just sit in front of the wave, right? And now they can't touch these minions. So it's going to be pushing towards them probably, but you can zone them out of at least 3 or 4 minions before the next wave comes crashing in. And even then, you could just like take this bush and start looking really menacing to them. So that's going to make them blow their ward in this bush so that they can't ward the river. And that's going to open up this scuttle to being a lot more vulnerable too for your jungler. Or if you get an advantage, you can go over there and take the scuttle yourself if you want, with your AD carry. But yeah, so that's what you need to do. So do not sit there and just pop level 2 and chill, or just like sit in this bush and pop level 2 and chill. Get up here, look scary. If they don't respect it, flash flay them. The absolute worst case scenario that happens there is you trade flashes, right? You flash, you flay them, you put a lot of damage on them, maybe 50% damage, 80 carry hits them once, then they flash, you miss your hook. Okay, whatever. You still did 50% of their health and damage, and you got a flash out of them. You traded flashes. And usually if you get their flash, that's beneficial for you because you're the initiator. So now the next time you hook them with something, they're going to die, right? So in theory, you shouldn't need your flash as much if they are playing a non-initiation type of champion. They're playing like a Janna or a Sona or something, they need their flash a lot more than you need yours most of the time. So that's a really good way to make a play there. Just shutting out vision as well is really helpful. So just making sure you have a lot of control wards. You're just putting vision, like locking them out of this bush. And then once you have them locked out, Thresh is a zone champion. So you want to zone them out. You do not want to push the wave. Your AD carry will probably push it. But Thresh can't do a lot if you're up here under this tower trying to harass. He doesn't have good harassment tools. I mean, he could try to hit them with a hook, while they're under tower. But he's very short range, and it's just not that beneficial. So it's much better if you can just get a good position, get scary, get this bush, and then just zone them out. Just force them to stand back here because you have a control ward here, your AD carries here, and you just zone them off the wave. So ideal position is about middle of the lane and zone, okay? And this is how a lot of the hard engaged champs are. Your Leonas, your Alistars, you don't want to push if possible. You just want to try to zone, get an advantage, and then zone them out with vision control in the bush. Another perk of this is it's going to slow push into the tower like that. So you're going to build up like 2.5 waves or something if you're slow pushing this properly. And then when that crashes into the tower, you can call in your jungler. You can say, hey, it's going to crash. Now, this is kind of a higher elo thing. You can call in your jungler, say, hey, it's going to crash here in about 30 seconds. You want to dive. And then you can come over here and have your jungler dive them when they have just a huge stack of minions up against their tower, right? Because you've been zoning them and this has been slow pushing. And so now you can try to land that hook, engage, soak a couple of minion shots. Or if your jungler catches the aggro first, you can throw a lantern and lantern them out after you get the kill. Then if you get that kill, then you're going to get several tower plates, or they're going to miss just a huge amount of CS. So that's really what you want to do, is just build up that slow wave. Another thing you can do, which doesn't require as much coordination, is you can just ping the jungle and say, hey, we're about to have priority. Just ping this a lot and say, hey, help out, help out. And then they're going to have like 15 minions in their tower, and then they're not going to be able to do anything about this dragon unless they want to miss all of that experience. So the slow push on the waves, and I talk about this in my wave management video. If you've never watched that, be sure to check that out. But that slow push opens up a lot of opportunities for you to go do something else. Or you could just go get Scuttle, or you can... maybe even just go get like some wards in here. You can get like a ward over here. Or whenever that pushes in a tower, you can actually rotate over here and make a play in the mid lane as well. So just going to open up a lot of opportunities for you because they're going to be busy trying to clear that out for like, 20 or 30 seconds. Then you can just roam over here, get behind the mid laner, try to get your flay in there, force a flash. So that's number 2. So number 1, go for that all-in play. Try to get an advantage early. If you can get their flash and put a lot of damage on them, a lot of times that's good enough. Then you have control of the lane, zone them out, get that slow push, use those control wards. And then every time you back, see if you can make a play middle. So just like run back through here, check this out, sweep this or drop a control ward here, especially if they're pushed up. So if this guy's pushed up, see if you can loop around and make a play there. That's like one of the most common roams in the game. And that's a good roam because a lot of times whenever you back, then your AD carry is just going to be hanging out near their tower. They might be getting pushed in. So if the enemy team backed first, and then you push them into the tower, and then you back, they're going to get to lane probably, like 10 seconds faster than you. And the most natural thing that most people are going to do is they're going to push in. So what they're going to do is they're going to push this wave in while you're rotating over here to go top. And then your AD carry can just farm right here pretty safely under tower while you're making a play mid. And you're still gaining experience while you make this play as well, because you have a chance to get their flash with a flay or with a hook or whatever. And you're getting some experience from the mid laner there. And so by the time you go back to bottom, you're really not missing that much experience. Your AD carry is sort of free farmed, and you got a free chance to come here and, sweep out the vision and try to force a flash or maybe even get a kill. So those are the best times to roam as Thresh, is after you've already backed or after you already have pressure up top and you have a free 20 or 30 seconds to roam over here. I will say, don't make this mistake. A lot of Threshes will do this. Don't just roam randomly. Like, make sure you're communicating it with your AD carry. Make sure you actually have a realistic chance of making a play mid lane. If they have an Ahri and their Ahri is just like pushed under their tower or something, right? Like this is, their Ahri over here. It's just like hanging out right here. It's not going to be worth your time to try to come over here and make this play, because you're going to like walk up here and throw a hook, probably miss. If you do hit, they're under tower, so you can't follow up. They're probably going to get out of it. And then that's going to allow the enemy team to get really aggressive and zone your AD carry off of this minion wave right here. So just keep in mind that whenever you roam, you're paying a price, right? You're leaving your AD carry alone, which means there's a decent chance they could die. At a minimum, they're probably getting zoned off of CS. They're losing experience, potentially. They're definitely losing gold. So, if your AD carry misses a wave while you roam, they miss 6 CS, that's a lot, right? That's like 100, 150 gold, depending on if it's a cannon wave or not. So maybe even more than that, depending on how late the game is and how much the cannon minion's worth. So, it's basically you're taking a shot, 150 gold for the potential to get 450 gold. So if you don't think you have at least a 33% chance of this to succeed, then it's not worth it. So, those are hard numbers. You're not going to have those hard numbers in your head necessarily. There's a lot of variables in game. Just keep in mind, it's a very hefty risk to roam. So the least risk roam is roaming after mid lane, once again, because your AD carry should be able to farm safely under tower. Or if you have it pushed in all the way, you can have your AD carry go with you and try to roam and make a play up here. That's a lot more likely to succeed. Or the safer play is just to get a dragon, or to like get a scuttle or take a blue or something like that while they're pushed in. But if you want to try to go all the way mid, you can do that. Now you will see some Threshes like potentially try to roam like top lane randomly. They'll just like run way up here and you'll say, oh my god, this Thresh made this crazy roam play top lane. It's extremely risky most of the time, because you're so far away from the AD carry. I mean, if you have like a good Ezreal on your team who's ahead and you're going to get this kill top lane, you have like a Riven on your team who's like 3-0 and they have like a Yorick on their team or something like that with like some limited escapes. Maybe you can come over here and make that play, get that kill, and then you can start taking these tower plates up here, and then they'll have pressure on bot lane. So it can work, but you have to be very, very confident that it's going to be a good play. You have to read the situation correctly. Because once again, if you're trying to roam up here and make that play and the lane's about even and their top laner's like kind of near their tower over here, and keep in mind, it's going to take you like 20 or 30 seconds to walk up here, depending on if you have mobility boots or not. So you have to sort of see where the lane is going. I mean, maybe the lane, it looks like it's a pretty good opportunity, right? Like maybe they're pushed in right here. This top laner's like screaming, somebody help me, please. I'm losing 1v1 by 30 CS. Someone bail me out. And so you're like, all right, fine, I'll do it as Thresh. And then you start walking up there. Well, maybe their AD carry hasn't pushed in, and it's just like, you know what, I'm just going to back. And they just back, and then you're up there completely wasting your time. Or the wave bounces off right here, right? Or their jungler shows up, right? So you try to make this roam, and your top laner is really far behind. You make this roam, you get up here, you're trying to make this play, and, they spot you on some wards or something here. You go all in, and then this top laner comes over, or this jungler does, and completely turns around and kills you both. So it's just extremely risky to roam, so just be careful with the roams. Like I said, the easiest things to do are just to get the dragon, get the scuttle, because that's really close by. You don't have to walk all the way upriver. The Scuttle is worth about half a kill anyways, gives you good experience, gives you a lot of extra HP and MP. Dragons are worth more. Like, most dragons are worth 2 or 3 kills, so it's just more valuable to get the dragon. It's safer than having that roam. So just read the situation. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with Thresh. Hopefully this helps you out a little bit. I don't want the video to be too long, but hopefully this gives you some ideas. So just try to go for that level 2. At least posture for it. If they respect it, they back up, great. You get to zone them off. You get some free CS. They don't respect it, okay. You flash flay, minimum. You're doing a lot of damage to them. They're using their flash. You're prepping them so that whenever you land that hook later on, it's going to be a kill because they're not going to have flash. Or in the great case scenario, which happens a lot, you can get that flash flay and get the kill and often get their flash too. So you flash flay, you hold on to your hook, you wait for them to flash. After they flash, then you land your hook. Then they die with their flash gone, and you get map pressure, and you pretty much won the lane if you play it correctly at that point. So just look for that level 2, posture for it, control vision, look menacing, look scary, go for the zones. A lot, half the time the best hooks are the ones that are never thrown. If you just hold onto your hook and you just look scary, and they're backing up, they're letting you get free CS for your AD carry. They are missing CS and experience themselves. That's mission accomplished. A lot of people think, oh, you have to land all these hooks on cooldown every single time and constantly be getting kills to, be good with Thresh. It's like, that's good, but you don't have to do that. If you're just zoning them out and you're getting big advantages in the lane, you're building up that, that slow push so that you can go make a play for Dragon or Scuttle or roaming or get a dive on the tower or whatever, that's fine. So you do want to be proactive, but you also want to be measured and think very carefully, as Thresh with what you can do. So go for the level 2, play for slow push strategy, zone them off. And when you do roam, try to make it whenever you back that you go for that roam middle, because your AD carry is going to be relatively safe in the bot lane. And then as the game unfolds, just make sure you have really good control with your control wards. Get the vision out of there. Try to land some of those hooks. And just remember to use the flay to try to stop mobility. Consider carefully what you want to do with the lantern. Do you want to use it offensively? Do you want to use it defensively? And just decide what your role is in the team comp for the given situation. Is your job primarily to peel your AD carry? Are you the primary engage? Or do you want to be somewhere in between? Do you want to use your hook to engage but then hold back maybe a little bit and use your flay and your ultimate to help your AD carry, right? Or do you want to position a little bit off to the side? Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe you engage with your hook. You'll hold on to your flay. You take the hook in, use your ult, and then you use your lantern to help pull your AD carry off to the side away from the diver, and then because you've held your flay, then you're going to be able to flay him back. So there are so many different options you can do with him, and that's why he's the hardest support to play. But hopefully this gives you some ideas in the early game to mid-game, some of the ways you can position and control the lane with Thresh, get an advantage, and hopefully I've given you some ideas for how you can improve your play. So thank you very much to Alex once again for the generous donation. I really appreciate it. Anyone else out there that'd like to donate, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to make a guide like this for you. It can be for a champion or it can be topical. If you have a certain aspect like, you want an updated vision guide, or you want an updated control guide, or you saw some really funky strategy that someone was doing in Korea, or that some all caps YouTuber was doing, and you want me to analyze that strategy and let you know if it's viable, or my thoughts on it or how to play it optimally, I can do that for you too. So just anything you can think of, I can probably do a video for it. Check out the rest of the content on the channel. Check out the stream. Starts most nights starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you. We have an awesome, chill, very friendly community. I try to be as interactive with the chat as possible to make a good experience for you. So come on out. We'd love to have you, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.